Welcome back. Hope you're doing well, especially with the state of the world as it is. Today's review was on the latest offering in the Scream franchise, Scream 7, written and directed by Kevin Williamson, the originator of the Scream franchise, and his first time manning the director's chair within this series of films, with additional writing credits for Guy Busic, whose recent work include Final Destination Bloodlines, which was a pretty fun installment in that series, Ready or Not, which was a really good film. I really enjoyed that. That one kind of came out of the blue during the pandemic when I saw it. I think that's when it released, like 2019. And then he was also writer of Abigail, which was a pretty fun take on the vampire genre. And then there's James Vanderbilt, who penned the previous installments of the Scream 5 and 6. He also did White House Down, which was a pretty fun, kind of dumb action movie. And then he also did Zodiac. Scream 7 returns its focus on the franchise's mainstay, Sidney Prescott Evans, now married, played by Neve Campbell, taking the lead after the story moves away from the events of New York in the previous installment, where the actress Melissa Barrera as Sam Carpenter was fired for opinions of the current Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people, with Jenna Ortega leaving the project in support of her. Scream 5 and 6 was a fresh take on the franchise as it moved away from focusing on Sidney Prescott and following the Carpenter sisters. I wonder what Scream 7 would have been like if they continued that story. But as what we got was a bit of a nostalgia-fueled mess, as we see Sidney now settled in a quiet life with her police chief husband, Mark Evans, played by Joe McHale, and her 3 kids, which of one is a teen daughter, Tatum, played by Isabel May, with the other 2 kids being relegated to off-screen, being at the relative's house. The movie starts off with a couple staying at the now infamous Stu Macher house, which is currently turned into a Airbnb museum rental property where they are murdered, setting off the stage for Ghostface to disrupt and terrorize Sidney's family. And of course, it wouldn't be a Scream movie without Courtney Cox's Gail Weathers returning and now suffering from the injuries she received in the events of New York, and is assisted by Screams 5 and 6's Meeks Martin siblings as her investigative crew as she tries to make her way back into the top of the news world. The focus of the 7th film is a mix between Sidney being over the protective parent and her daughter Tatum wanting to know more about her mother's past and understanding the history of their family. So they are both basically the leads in the film as the story bounces around their 2 perspectives, with Tatum and her friend group being used to shoehorn the typical trope of, is somebody in the friend group or prime suspect's always going to be the boyfriend, which always seems to be the case. Not a terrible movie, but it wasn't good either, as it relied too heavily on the nostalgic aspect with a red herring of a subplot that is heavily influenced by the current state of the world, with heavily influenced by AI. And outside of a couple kills in the film, most of them were pretty mediocre and bland and very quick for a slasher movie, which I guess Scream falls into like the slasher genre of horror. I've always felt that the franchise was a little weak in the kind of kills that occur, and I could be mistaken because it's been years since I've seen Screams 1 through 4, so they might have had a little bit more interesting kills for those films. The acting was fine for the material they were given, but I think what the movie suffered from is trying to split the focus between Sidney and her daughter, the subplot of Gal and her team there to help assist and try to figure out who the true killers are, because it's always, I guess in the Scream universe, it's always either somebody they know or somebody of somebody they know, or some kind of crazy fan of the Stab franchise that's inside of this Scream universe, as they made a movie on Sidney Prescott's events of the first movie and so on. If you enjoyed the previous movies in this franchise, you may find something to like here, but for me, it didn't bring anything new or exciting to the franchise, resting too much on its focus and nostalgia that maybe isn't really culturally relevant, but I guess there's a whole like spoof comedy series, Scary Movie, that kind of takes a lead from the Scream series, especially since the original kind of fake title for Scream was Scary Movie. Who knows how well that parody will do when it releases in the next few months. I'm not a big fan of parodies, so I probably won't watch Scary Movie. Scream 7, 2 stars.